Well, folks, here we are again for the weekly forecast. Before we get to the main forecast, let's take a little bit of a look at what happened during this last 7-day period. And of course, the big news was the storm system that came out last weekend did fall a little bit farther north with the heavier precipitation than initially forecasted, but we did see a fairly decent snowfall event across the northern half of the Sandhills, particularly the northwestern half of the Sandhills. And as you move south and east of there, the precipitation total dropped off rather dramatically to the point where eastern Nebraska received just a few hundredths of an inch of moisture. In most locations, we caught into the dry slot. Now, this snowfall wasn't a drought buster by any means, but it was an effective precipitation producer, and it does give us a semblance of hope that as we go through the next few weeks with the number of storm systems that look like they may be moving through the Central Plains, that we can continue to build on the moisture that has already fallen, and perhaps may give us a semblance of hope as we move into the spring that we could possibly get enough moisture that we can generate some decent grass growth on our very drought-stricken pastures out in western Nebraska. So let's take a look at the upper air models and see what we can expect as we go through this next 7-day period. And as we go to the upper air models, the first thing I'll draw your attention to is that here is a trough across the eastern United States that's been responsible for some significant moisture across the southeast. And according to reports, anywhere from 2 inches up to 12 inches of moisture falling in this region. And this is an area where we do still have some drought signature, and that does go all the way down into the Florida Panhandle. This was a system that come across Oklahoma and then really erupted as it got to the southeast during the middle week period. And it's expected to move up the eastern seaboard and out to sea as we go through the weekend, but we'll turn our attention to the west as we have a trough in the Pacific Northwest that is probably going to move into our region as we get into the Monday time frame. But in advance of that, we're going to start to see some warmer air build into the region, and a fairly nice day as we get through today. Most locations are going to be very warm, very sunny, and much warmer conditions will be in store as we get into tomorrow, as that probably looks to be the warmest day of this 7-day period. And wouldn't be surprised that we'll see some temperatures nearing the upper 50s across portions of southern Nebraska. But then we have this little trough that's going to move into our region rather quickly, and by the time we get to Monday, we'll notice that trough quickly makes its way to the east, kind of splits the energy a little bit. So we're not expecting much in the way of moisture, maybe a few flurries. And outside of that, as it moves to the east, it's going to draw a little bit more Gulf moisture up into the eastern Corn Belt and should be an efficient precipitation producer for them as it moves up in the upper Great Lakes. But then we turn our attention to the southwest. This is a system that we need to really pay attention to. Right now, the models are indicating a path that will take it directly to the south of Nebraska and generate a fairly widespread precipitation event, particularly as we get into the day on late Wednesday and Thursday. Here comes that system. It's going to be digging deep. It's going to be pulling a lot of moisture into our region. And then as we get into Thursday, it sits right over to the eastern Nebraska or eastern Iowa and really wraps a lot of cold air around it, and we should see an efficient snow producer. And by the time we get to Friday, it's going to move out of our region. So if we look in terms of the temperature forecast, what we're going to notice is temperatures are going to be fairly warm this week, and then we'll see a cooling trend with very heavy snow possible on Thursday, and then we'll see a clearing conditions on Friday. If we get to the 6 to 10-day forecast for next week, the following Tuesday, we'll see that the cold air remains in place to the west, and yet another system is expected to move out as we get into the midweek period that might give us another chance of precipitation.